Okay, so it is 8 minutes gone past the hour of 9 on the AM side. How are you doing? And welcome to Eagle's Outlook, where we look into political conversations as well as dive into current affairs matters. My name is Uduak Daniel, and yes, it's a Thursday. It is the 10th day in the month of July of 2025. So Nigerians are rejecting the electricity tariff hike as proposed by the federal government, where the federal government is planning to implement a cost-reflective electricity tariff in Nigeria. And this implementation is aimed at tackling the 4 trillion naira debt in the power sector. So this move has been met with widespread rejection. It's an outright rejection from Nigerians who are already struggling with the current tariff structure and poor service delivery. Now, if you recall that in May of 2025, the Minister of Power, Adebayo Adelabu, he had come out to stating that the current tariff structure is unsustainable and that a cost-reflective tariff system is necessary for the sector's long-term viability. Now, he also emphasized that the government can no longer afford to subsidize electricity for all consumer categories, especially the high-end users, the Band A's, if you know. Now, the proposed tariff hike has sparked, sharp criticism and resistance from the labor unions, from the civil society groups, who are arguing that it will lead to mass protest and social unrest. I mean, many Nigerians that are saying on social media, advancing their displeasure, accusing the power distribution companies, DISCOs, of poor service delivery despite earlier tariff increments. So let's put it in context. What exactly is the federal government saying? Now, they are planning to implement a cost-reflective electricity tariff to tackle the 4 trillion naira debt in the power sector. That's what the federal government is planning now. So, the figures involved in this will be the 4 trillion naira debt in the power sector, 536 billion naira spent on electricity subsidies in the first half of 2025. I mean, for many Nigerians, the proposed tariff hike is a personal issue. And this personal issue affects our daily lives. Now, let's take Mrs. Adebayo, for example. Now, she's a small business owner. She pays 50,000 naira monthly for electricity. With this proposed hike, her bill could increase to the very amount of our minimum wage, that's 70,000 naira or even more. So this would be a significant burden for a business, which is already struggling to even stay afloat. If you also recall that, was it yesterday or the day before, where we had conversations surrounding the polls, the API poll, as to the performance or what Nigerians feel about the Tinubu administration. And it shows that a whopping 82% are not aligning with whatever reforms that the current administration has put out there, especially when it has to do with the economy and economic activities. And we mentioned matters that concerned improving on the lives of those for whom and through whom governments should be felt. And so that's why at some point when we saw the win by the federal government against the states seeking for local government autonomy, it was something of joy. We were so happy. We're so everywhere, everybody mesmerized. And we'd hoped that this will indeed allow for governance to get to the grassroots, to the most vulnerable of Nigerians. But if in a situation where there are economic reforms that only tackle foreign investors seeking to woo them into the country to do business. And we are not seeing economic reforms that is about the people, the small, medium enterprises, the MSMEs. When we're seeing entrepreneurs on a daily basis closing up shops and saying, you know what, we are done. We can't continue like this. When we're seeing NPR increased for almost 7 or 10 months consecutively. When we see the little industries that were here packing up and leaving. Why? What for? It's not far from truth. Power. There is no conducive atmosphere for businesses to thrive. And I'm taking Mrs. Adebayo, for example, now. Used to pay 50,000 naira before. Now, with this tariff increment, she might be paying as high as 70,000 naira or even more. And we are not even done with minimum wage conversations just yet. Wage arrears, allowance and the rest. We're not even done with that. I mean, we also saw on the front page in the news, where the federal government was seeking to allow for states to decide their minimum wage, and the NLC got kicking. Oh, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't take away, don't do that. All of these going on. And power has always been the issue. Not from now, it has always been an issue for a long time. And we expected Mr. President to do something about that sector. If it's about the minister, the ministry, or the contracts from past administrations, privatizations that is not favoring the people, if it's about getting fresh brains, introducing them into the system and saying, hey, how do we make this work? Because the truth is, it's not rocket science. And that's a fact. It's not rocket science. We can indeed get the power sector running. We've had a long history of challenges. There's been talks about inadequate infrastructure, inefficient management, lack of transparency. I mean, in the past, government has implemented various reforms aimed at improving the sector's performance, but these efforts have been met with limited success. So it means that we've been doing the same thing, the same way, over and over and over again, and still expecting to see a different result. That's not going to work. But then, let's connect with our guest right now. He is an information professional. He is a policy and public affairs analyst. He has been in the space of various sectors, played a crucial, critical role one way or the other. And now, he's going to be talking to us. He's in the person of Mr. Benedict Olaliko Akunwoye. Good morning to you, Sir Benedict.
Good morning.
Oh, yes, good morning to you. Feels good to hear from you this morning. Well, Mr. Benedict, here we are again. Even when the power sector is riddled with its own inadequacies, it does seem as though you and I and the family members that listen on here, we are the ones that bear the brunt. Where there is a problem with the transformers, you and I get to bear the brunt. where there is a pole that is breaking into a house wall or fence, it seems you and I still have to bear the brunt. So I'd like for you to, from your wealth of experience in matters in these sectors, as well as relevant to this conversation, what do you think about the federal government's push for yet another tariff in the power sector when the power sector in itself is inadequate, is going through inadequacies, and yet the masses are expected to bear the brunt?
The record of the actual cost in the sector? The answer is no. So how do you reflect a cost that you don't know? Yes, you say in proper climate, maybe in Australia, maybe in the UK, you can be talking about cost reflective tariffs, right?
Yes.
That is because there is a transparent data that says this is what generation will cost. This is what goes into distribution. This is what goes transmission. And at that point, you can be talking about a tariff that is cost reflective. In Nigeria, where people buy the transformers, where Gencos generate what TCN cannot transmit, right? Where discos are not able to take what is transmitted. Now you want the consumer to pay for the cost of generation that is not transmitted, including what is not transmitted, and the cost of transmission, including what is not distributed. Now, when you put that into consideration, I think that the government needs to deal with the inefficiencies in the sector before we begin to talk about cost reflective tariff. Right. In environments where you do cost reflective tariff, people don't pay for darkness. And discos do not give opportunity for so much stealing. As it is in Nigeria, there is energy theft, either the one-sided or by collusion, and there are a lot of people paying for darkness. So meter them so that they know what the actual consumptions are. People who use equipment and machineries that need to be on three-phase, put them on three-phase. People that are on single-phase, put them on single-phase. And let's have a data that can say, oh, in this power district, this is the number of people on three-phase, this is the number of people on single-phase, this is their energy requirement, and this is what we have been able to supply them. Until there are data that are transparent enough and correct, I think that we'll be wasting our time talking about cost-reflective tariff. All we are trying to do, as of now, what the minister is doing is passing the buck to the end consumers. Is the grid strong enough to support Nigeria? My answer is no. Our discos, majority of the discos are not up to the business as far as I'm concerned, because transformers go down and they cannot replace. Poles will fall and they will not talk about it. There are lines bridging and powers are going down when they should actually, and they have not done their adequate maintenance. So maintenance-wise, our discos are failing. Procurement-wise, I think I would say they have failed. Even in billing, they have not been able to provide the people with meter. Today, you see the meter form, this meter is free. But you go to any AEDC agent office in Abuja, they will collect 15,000 naira from you for that photocopy that is written, this form is free. And then you are going to fill the form and they expect you to pay 145,000 naira or thereabout to get a meter. This is a meter that should help them prevent arbitrary billing so that you are not underbilled and you are not overbilled. But they are not ready to be transparent about that. They are not ready to meter the people. So until we do away with energy theft, until we do away with paying for darkness, until we do away with adequate infrastructure, talking about cost reflective tariff for me will be a textbook theory. It is a textbook theory. So we keep saying that going forward, if the sector need to sleep and wake up again, it's their problem. But as for the government, our repositioning and focus should be, like I would always say, all tertiary education must be off the national grid. All tertiary health cares must be off the national grid. All research institutes and specialized agencies must be off the national grid. Why? Because there is availability of abundance renewables in Nigeria. And so we should power all this on mini grid or off grid based on renewable solutions.
Right.
When that is done, then you are leaving the national grid of some budging, and then they can sit down, manage it, and cope with the load that they have. There is no point shoring up the national grid, in my opinion, at the moment, when we know that the discos are not even able to meet the need of the consumers on the street. So basically, they should look at putting more money in renewables, putting isolated villages. There is no need to extend the national grid to some villages and towns at the moment. Put them on mini grid, put them on some off grid. Yes, you can decide to even still have some gas plants if you so choose, but renewable should be our biggest focus because it's our biggest win. It's our most available and abundant resource. Gas is abundant, but you need all effort to get the gas to the gas plant. Whereas the renewables are the disposals of the localities where you need them to run. Right. So rather than the minister always focusing on speaking on behalf of GENCOs and DISCOs, I think for once he should speak on behalf of energy sustainability in the nation. So our energy policy should be focused on what do we do to drive renewables, so that while the DISCOs and the GENCOs and TCN are dealing with their inefficiencies to prove their worth, the nation and the important and critical sector will not be left in comatose. Right. That's what I think is the right way going forward. So cost reflective tariff is not the first priority, should not and must not be the first priority of the Ministry of Power and the focus of energy policy in Nigeria. So getting the people.
Yeah. So in your thoughts, when we talk about subsidy burden, because the federal government has come about, they're paying so much for subsidizing this particular sector. In what way do you think the federal government can reduce the subsidy burden on the power sector, especially when there might be implications for the consumers?
That's why I'm saying, before you even talk about subsidy, we are subsidizing inefficiency. The data you are pushing out there says that GENCOs are generating 7.5.
Yes.
Transmission, TCN is saying we can only transmit 5 or thereabout. Now, the DISCOs are not even taking everything, are not able to distribute everything that is transmitted, either because the transformers are down, because the poles are falling, and a number of other inefficiencies. So I think that the focus should first be to address the inefficiency in the sector. If I can drink 5 liters, why do you want me to pay for 7.5? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If TCN cannot transmit more than 5, why are DISCOs generating 7.5? I don't know if you get it, because the 7.5 is what is being billed, not the amount. It is not the energy that is transmitted that is billed. Ordinarily, if we have proper billing system and we have the right data, what we consume is what the consumers should pay for, right? But right now, there are no correct record of consumption. Estimated billing is still in more than 1 million subscribers positions, and when you call it estimated, there is actually no actual value that is measured. If there is a meter, because that's what I know in some countries, you have a meter in the 3 months period, they take the average. That's your monthly bill. And then they give you that amount for the next 2 months. By the time they are reading the meter again, after 3 months, they take a new average. If your consumption has dropped, right?
Yeah.
Then you will realize that the new bill you are paying will drop. If your consumption has increased, then what you have paid as estimated for the first 2 months is not correct. So the difference will be added to the third month for you to balance for the quarter. But that's not what we have with our own estimated billing go to people without meter. So how do you actually know that they are consuming more or they are consuming less? So basically there is inefficiency in the sector as it relates to generation data, as it relates to transmission data, as it relates to distribution infrastructure, and as it relates to the actual billing. So with this imbalance, I don't think that you can actually have a cost that is reflective enough, because the data for the cost is not sufficient. What you have is not correct. You cannot tell me that this cost can tell us what they actually distribute.
Okay.
Because the meters on the streets, the transformers on the street are not metered. So assuming that the transformers on the streets are metered, then you can say you are basing the estimation for that street on the meter on the transformer for the street. Is it not?
Yeah.
But they are not metered. People buy their transformers on their own. And some communities buy transformer and negotiate the billing.
So is that supposed to be the case? Is that supposed to be the case?
No.
And then when the poll falls and all of that, is it the people that are supposed to be, responsible for that?
That's what we are saying. There is so much inefficiency in the sector.
So government must tackle the inefficiencies first.
That the transformer goes down.
Yes.
Yes. When we deal with the inefficiencies, then we will have data that is responsive. Now, when the data are responsive and reflective, then the cost can now become reflective. But if you are talking about a cost-reflective tariff in an environment where you have a non-responsive data, a data that is grossly inaccurate,
yes,
then you are going to be punishing those who are paying their bills unnecessarily.
Right.
So I think that everybody needs to stand up to the minister.
Let's just take a pause and take this call. Now.
So you are not okay.
Let's take this call. Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. I greet our guest.
Yeah.
This is Blessing from Osako.
Yes, please.
I want to ask NEPA. Thank God the man of NEPA did here, our spokesman. I want to ask, is it good to NEPA to work on Sunday, connect illegal life? Now you go say connect illegal when you don't get meter. Then on Sunday they begin to enter people's houses, they collect money for hand to hand. If you say maybe you send up the blue account number, they go say no. And they work out for your domot to collect money. They say na illegal. Now they go tell you say connect illegal. What is our right to pay that money? I think where they come. That way they tell us say may they connect illegal. Later no, now they go still come over early morning around 5 o'clock. Later go come knock your door. Even though you don't lock your gate, they go just enter.
Right. Okay, BB, I get that.
Is this fair? Now what I want to ask that.
Right.
And when this time we go sit down our pay, they go see they collect money for our hand. What it be our life to call? What it be their own work? What they do? When we go see they pay money, now we go buy our pay. They go see they collect money for our hand, and they go see they work out illegal. It means that they only the money to go and collect the same money.
Okay,
what is that one mean? Please tell them. I go see call you back.
Right. Well, anyways, Sir Benedict, are you there? Well,
yeah, I've listened to her.
Okay.
And basically, what she's talking about is still the inefficiency that we are talking about.
Right.
Those money and those illegal connections do not go into AEDC data. It goes into some people's pocket. So definitely, like we have said, meter every consumer officially. Asking people to also come and pay 180,000 naira, 145,000, 135,000 to get meter, in my opinion, is part of the way of saying don't collect meter, let's give you estimated billing. Now, whatever those people have paid does not go into the record. That the kind of illegal connection she's talking about.
Yeah.
Whatever they pay do not go into the record. And unfortunately, because they will not give them meter in a manner that is transparent and affordable, that's why they will also not even create an account for them. So when you don't have an account and you are paying bills, whatever bills you are paying does not go into the record. That's the implication.
Yeah.
Some people share it. And that's why we say that the minister should focus on correcting the inefficiencies in the sector. What we are doing right now is we are subsidizing inefficiencies. Like the woman rightly said, they are paying. That payment does not go into the account of the disco. So when you are saying cost is not reflective, how can that reflect in the price? That will not reflect. But if you made the right correction, it means that every payment that is done goes into the system, and then you can now check the balance. Because whatever those women and those people on her street uses at the moment forms part of the subsidy that government will pay, because it's part of the gap, right?
Yeah.
That the discos will announce. So for me, the minister has not started his work. It's for me just still blabbing from day one till date, sitting down with discos and no. It's not issue statement of people should not buy meter, should not buy transformers, people should not this, people should not. No. It is that you put down a rule. If your transformer blows, report if your transformer is faulty or you don't have a transformer or you need a transformer, write your disco. Copy NERC. If you do not get response in a week, this is the hotline there in the minister's office. Right? So that the ministry can then into that. And after a while, maybe a deadline will be set to say if the transformer is not replaced in a month, this is the penalty that the disco will pay to the consumer in that community. Right. Until there is a sanction on disco, because you go to disco, they said we don't have the cable. If you can wait, when we have, we'll come and fix it. No, that is so. In essence, if you can give me that reply, I should have somebody I can report to say that this is what the disco is saying. And so if we are going to buy, we will buy and send the receipt to the minister and NERC. So that they will collect our money back for us from the disco.
Right.
Not that. So create a platform to say if discos refuse to buy transformer, they will cure. Give us your invoice and we'll make the disco to refund. When you put that as part of the rules and you set up that guideline.
All right. Well,
and you set up the process.
Yeah.
Yes. Put an their complaint. When you put all that together, you will reduce the inefficiency in the service. Subsidy you are claiming now may not actually be that. That's the practical reality if we have the right data coming into the system.
All right, let's look at the fact that the electricity distribution companies have received over 254,404 customer complaints in the first quarter of 2025 alone, and mostly driven by grievances over faulty metering, erratic service, inaccurate billing. The Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission had said that. So, in a newly released quarterly report, the NEC has revealed 254,404 complaints were lodged by consumers between January and March 2025, a 7.72% drop from the 275,681 complaints received in the previous year. But if you also consider again the fact that just recently, right, about 1 year after the federal government promised to subsidize electricity consumed by hospitals and educational institutions in the country, the facilities are still grappling with high electricity debts. And that's what is going on even up until now. So a consumer group is condemning the government's silence on the matter. alleging that the power minister only made the statement without the approval of the Federal Executive Council. If you also recall that the Minister of Power, Adebayo Adelabu, who made the promise in August 2024, has since remained quiet, with no further action taken on the promise he made. And this is coming at a time where industry sources knowledgeable about the developments stated that the federal government may be considering any form of power, may not be considering any form of power subsidy for these institutions at the moment. Well, if we look at all of these together, Mr. Benedict, and with the current Minister of Power that we have, what would you expect the president to do in this directive to make things right?
Well, if I were the president,
yes,
the current Minister of Power is not competent for that job. I've never seen him address inefficiency. Like I said, inefficiencies is the biggest problem in the sector. Tertiary education, tertiary health institution, do they need subsidy? No. You need to take them off the national grid. They should be on mini grid or on some form of isolated off grids, in which case they can manage their 24 hours power supply. So talking about paying subsidy on their behalf is another layer of inefficiency. So for me, the minister had not has not demonstrated competence as it requires the problem of the sector. The day he is ready, he will talk about what I call the inefficiency in this sector. I will keep insisting. Discos Agencos cannot say they are generating 7.5 if TCN cannot distribute 5. I cannot transmit 5, and the discos are not distributing 5. If the consumers are not metered, how do you justify whatever discos call their collection? What data did they use for the collection? How would you justify it? So for me, the minister should sit down. Like I said, some of the laws that could control the inefficiencies are not in place. Obviously, the minister is on air to say, you can power off your AC and then go out. No. If I am not sure, I didn't leave light at home, I'm not sure I will meet light when I come back, how do I switch off my freezer? If I'm sure there will be light, then I can on the freezer for 4 hours and say I want to power it off. You understand what I'm saying? But you are not sure when the light will come. You are not sure when we will not have light. But he keeps saying, no, we leave this and that on. Sometimes some people did not even leave some of the things on deliberately.
Yeah.
The NEPA took light in the night. And by the time they woke up in the morning, they needed to struggle to prepare for work and go. And so in the end, they did not remember to power some. But if the light was continuously on, a bulb that is on, you would definitely switch it off before you leave the house. Right. But because there was no light, and when you also look at again, there are no standards in some environments with our electricians. Some bulb in some houses up.
So Benedict, are you there?
Of down his lines, we discover that it's down. So you are confused all the time. But if the light is on, then you can correctly switch them off and know that they are off before you leave the house.
All right,
but you see the minister take that as an issue. Yeah. You see him talking about communities should not buy transformers. What alternative do they have if Disco did not give? And that's why I said make the law. If they decide to buy, let them get their invoice. Let them buy. Let Disco install. And let them present the invoice to the government. And then the government at their clearing house will surcharge the Disco and pay the community for buying the transformers.
Let's look at some of the messages.
Not leaving the community perpetually at the expense of Disco.
Right. Now, we see we see messages on Facebook. Also, Francis Namani saying, keep up the good work. Thank you. Suleiman Danfulani now is from National Assembly quarters, is also joining us already via the Facebook page wall. Thank you, far too kind. But we see this message coming from Yusuf in Abuja here. I would say too, I guess. It says, government to introduce new electricity tariffs to achieve cost-reflexive regime. The truth of the matter is that discos in Nigeria are bankrupt and are being run by creditor banks, courtesy of failed privatization of the sector. Fact check revealed that the Abuja Disco AEDC is under the management of UBA. The Ibadan Disco is under AMCON management. These discos must have falsely misrepresented that they had funds and expertise when they applied to run the sector. Trillions of naira government interventions, World Bank power sector loans, domestic bank loans, fraudulent billing unaccounted for. Therefore, increase in tariff with the present setup is to make Nigerians to continue paying for inefficiency in the sector. I advised the Minister of Power to resign forthwith because his banned and okay, and this is a total failure. Okay, it's ban A, ban B, and all of that is a total failure. I have also advised the government to probe the companies in the sector, take over and run them as public enterprises, pending adoption of different privatization model for the sector. All right, have a nice day, he says. And the last message we'll be taking here now is coming from James, all the way from Suleja. So James is saying, this is one of the many reasons why Nigeria is a crime scene. The cluelessness of hiking tariffs in the name of making it cost reflective is mind-boggling. It is embarrassing how the government will always put the cart before the horse and then turn around to shift responsibility to the passenger. What kind of shapeless heads do we have in shaped holes, for Christ's sake? Why do Nigerians have to pay for generated electricity that Nigerians do not consume? You generate more than you can transmit and distribute, and you want the distribution agencies to pay the excesses they can't contribute, they can't distribute. And it is the end users who bear the brunt via, okay. All right, I think I lost that. Via the, tariff hike and estimated billing. A sane person would work towards having proper records and statistics that they can work with towards knowing what exactly Nigerians consume. When we raise our voices the first time, these people chose to ban Nigerians and hike by over 200% in 2024. They claimed it was to get the rich to pay more by banning rich neighborhoods, but between them and now, we have seen how the banding has spread all around, the hike now affecting everyone. We all know they have probably already increased the tariff as they usually do, even before making it public. Well, the minister recently declared his gubernatorial ambition, so we understand. All right, so anyways, Emma, future president, now is saying that it's unfortunate we find ourselves in the hands of people who don't care about our welfare. Electricity in Nigeria is a scam. They keep increasing tariff every day, and Nigerians are not even seeing the supply, yet we pay for darkness. Emma, thank you, far too kind. Well, Sir Benedict, I wish we can discourse more, but we can't go any further. But thank you for keeping your ears and also giving us your time and attention, on this discourse this morning.
You're welcome.
Right. And yes, quite a number of Nigerians, stakeholders too, are having the fears that should this move find maturity, should this move by the federal government come to implementation, that it will indeed cause a chaos. And that's not something anybody wants to see in this country. Right? Well, thank you to each and every one of you for being a part of this one, though. But don't worry, 10 o'clock, we'll get to make a wish. And you never know what your wish might be. And it may just come true. But I see the call still coming through. Can't go any further with that. But thank you, far too kind, all the same. 10 o'clock, we'll be right back. Don't go away.
No offense to the commercials. It's just that we want to see other audio. Eagles 102.3.